I get asked a lot, how do I pick my pediatrician? How do I know who to go to? What should I do to find the pediatrician that's right for me? So this is a really, really good question. And, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer to this. And the important thing to remember is that you may not pick right. You kind of have to guess and then see how things go. So you can always switch pediatricians if you're not happy with something about the one that you chose. So most of us pediatricians are pretty cool though, so you probably can't go too wrong. So the first thing that I recommend is if you're able to set something up to meet them either virtually or in person, most pediatricians will offer something like this. And if you can, just simply, do you like them? Do you think it's somebody who you click with? The other thing is looking at during that meeting, like, how do they seem in terms of, are they rushed? Do they have time to actually listen to your questions? Do they seem frazzled? Because sometimes people are just running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And if that's what it's going to be like when you come in with a sick child or have some serious questions to ask, you don't want to feel like the doctor is frazzled. Now, granted, some days any doctor is going to be frazzled. There are good days and bad days. So you can't necessarily judge them based completely on that one visit. But if you're getting the impression that they're not going to have time for you, then that's something to pay attention to. The next good question is, how is your office structured? So is it how much time is spent for each appointment? Are well checks given the same amount of time as sick visits? Are all sick visits given the same amount of time? Or are there certain types of sick visits that get more time allotted to them? This is important because some visits are going to take longer than others, and you want to make sure that you're going to have the time that you need. Some doctors are very good at, despite having, let's say 15-minute appointments per visit, they manage to balance things out and they will spend more time with you if you need more time, and they will spend less when things are straightforward. And if they are lucky, then every day they have a good enough mix of those things that things even out. But part of my problem where I was previously was that I wanted to spend more time, but I was only allowed to have my 15-minute appointments. And because of that, I either had to not spend the time that I wanted to or spend it and be running very, very behind. So, just something to kind of figure out about how your doctor arranges their visits and how things are scheduled and maybe how late they are usually running. So, also another question about the structure of the office is, how do they handle after hours concerns? Do after hours calls go to some sort of hired out nurse triage? Is it handled by the physician that you're seeing, your pediatrician, or some combination of the colleagues switching over? And, every night of the week, you might get a different doctor who may or may not know you. There's lots of different ways that this gets handled. I've even heard of some offices where at 10 o'clock, the phone lines go off and you just get an answering machine, and there's no nurse triage or um, answering service. If you need help in the middle of the night, you just have to take your child to the emergency room or an urgent care that's open. So just something to know about. For instance, in my practice, it's just me. And after hours, there are certain things that I want to know about. And if a parent is thinking about a question that they have in the evenings, they can either email or text me. If it's not urgent, I may not get back to it the next day, but they're welcome to contact me. And if it's urgent, then they know how to reach me and to make sure that they will get a call back from me. And I want to hear about anything going on where they may be trying to decide whether or not to go to the emergency room at that moment, because they may or may not really need to. And I want to help them to figure that out. So I want to hear about the sick kids in the middle of the night if the parent doesn't think it's something that can wait until the next day. But it's nice for my patients to know that they're going to reach me and I know them and I know their child. And that is going to help me to triage that a little bit better. So that is important to my patients, but it may not be important to you. Everybody's got their say, their different priorities. And then finally, how does your pediatrician practice? Are they evidence based? Do they continue studying and keeping up with the literature and figuring out what the latest recommendations are? Do they hold hard and fast to that? Because it's not always black and white. And it's really important to me to have joint decision making and really educate my patients and listen to what their specific concerns on and make sure that we come up with a plan that makes sense for everybody and that everybody can agree on. That doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily do everything that a parent comes to me and says, I want this done, and this done. I'm not going to do those things if they're either not safe or I truly do not think that they are necessary. I will explain why I don't think that that's a good idea. But sometimes there are a number of ways to go about things. And I do like for parents and the children, if they're at an age where they can be involved, to all be part of that decision making process. Maybe ask how often they prescribe antibiotics, how often they take a more conservative approach, how often they do imaging or lab work. What is their stance on vaccines? And do they accept patients who don't vaccinate? Do they recommend vaccination to all of their patients? How do they do vaccines? Those are just questions to make sure that you are on the same page as your physician. And ultimately, that is what is going to foster a relationship of trust both ways going forward. So hopefully that's helpful. I just cannot keep things short. So that's the other thing about me. If you want somebody who is just going to be, to the point and fast, because some people want that, that's not going to be me. I have to take more time. Even in my videos, it's hard for me to be super succinct. So I like to talk and ramble on sometimes. But if you are in a rush, then tell me that and I can move along as well. The nice thing that I like about my appointments is that, there's certain things I have to do at, let's say, an in person appointment. And sometimes I am in a particular rush because I'm running behind or something, or my family that I'm seeing suddenly had something come up and they don't have a lot of time. So I can do what I need to do in person and then talk to you later to finish up and answer the rest of your questions and ask the rest of my questions. And that's just a nice thing to know that that's always an option. And we don't have to do everything all at the same appointment time because I have a little bit more flexibility and more time that I can spend on each patient that doesn't always have to be in the same time slot. So that can make things a little bit easier and more flexible. And just knowing that there is that option to spread things out in terms of specific sick or well visits is a nice peace of mind too. So just remember, though, you do not have to stick with the same person if you are not happy with them. And we don't take it personally. We know that there's going to be better fits for certain people are going to fit with me, certain people won't. And maybe we will fit in the beginning and then we'll realize that we're not the best fit over time. So that is okay. What's important to us as pediatricians is that you are with somebody who is comfortable. So those are my few cents about finding a pediatrician that works for you and that is going to fit with you. And if you think that I might be a good fit, feel free to contact me. Contact me through my website. And I'll put a link here for how to schedule a meet and greet with me if you're interested in general pediatrics or fourth trimester care or a breastfeeding medicine consult. Have a wonderful rest of your day.